Did you know that it is dark half the time? Did you know that it can be dark in buildings where light can't get to it even during the day? Maybe the power's out. Maybe there's no lights. Maybe there's no fire. So if we don't train for the dark, we're kind of left in the dark. Welcome back everybody to the Mr. Stupid Asso channel. I recently attended the MDFI low light long gun training class. I'd like to go over some of the tips, tricks, and things I learned in the class and an overview outline of the class with you. After that, we're going to go through some of the gear that I ended up using for the class and some final thoughts that might help you if you attend the class. So I ended up actually going for an entire weekend because the day before I ended up going to the low light handgun class through MDFI. So I checked into a hotel, which leads me to my first tip. Instead of making 3 trips back and forth to the car, bringing in all of your equipment, grab one of the little carts for the luggage, bellhop type carts, take that up to your room, you'll get a lot less looks. Ask me how I know. So the MDFI low light handgun class actually has 2 prerequisites for it. According to the staff there, is the most prerequisite heavy class that MDFI offers. It requires that you first attend the foundation handgun class, and then you have to also attend the foundation rifle class or shotgun, depending on what you end up using in this class. And you also have to attend the low light handgun class, which I did the day before. Topics covered: an in-depth firearms handling, safety, and medical briefing. Of course, this is true with every MDFI class. Transitions from handgun to rifle. Positive target identification. Utilizing a defensive long gun in low light and no light conditions. Handheld light techniques in conjunction with a long gun. Use of light guidelines. Ammo, gear, and light choice review, suggestions, benefits, pros, and cons. The student requirements. A sighted-in semi-auto rifle, carbine, or shotgun, depending on your preferred use. A rifle or carbine or shotgun light. 300 to 400 rounds of ammo, and 3 magazines. Or if you're going to use a shotgun, you have to have a pattern shotgun. It can be a pump or a semi-auto. 200 rounds of buckshot or slugs, and 20 rounds of birdshot. You're also required to bring a handgun to this class. Even though it is a long gun class, you're going to go over those transitions that I previously mentioned. So you're going to need a semi-automatic handgun, 150 rounds of ammunition, 3 magazines, and a quality of holster, of course. Other requirements: a handheld light, 2 red glow sticks. This is to clip to your front and rear so we can positively identify you once the lights go out. Eye and ear protection, and your CPL or law enforcement credentials. If you don't have either one, there is an alternative to that MDFI can work with you. The main purpose of this is to make sure MDFI is providing training to the good guys and not any bad guys. Other recommendations are a quality rifle sling, handgun weapon mounted light, headlight with a red light option. I strongly suggest this. This is going to be my next tip. Bring a headlight that has a red light option. Appropriate clothing for the weather. Folding canopy, table, chairs. I just brought a chair, worked out of the back of my vehicle. I'll show you a picture. It worked out really well for me. Sunscreen or insect repellent. You're going to want to bring insect repellent. It's Michigan. The mosquitoes will literally carry you away. Snacks and drinks for 8 hours, and spare batteries not only for your optics, but your weapon mounted lights and your handheld lights. The motto or mantra of the low light long gun class through MDFI is, I will bring the greatest might with the greatest light to the fight. This means I'm going to bring the most powerful weapon with the most powerful light to the fight. Makes a lot of sense, especially if you're trying to overcome light that's coming at you. I talked about this in my low light handgun class. You're going to want something much more powerful, higher lumen, higher candela, in order to overcome that light, properly identify your targets. Something to remember that I think I forgot to mention in the handgun class is that this is a workshop. There's no time limit, there's no pressure. A lot of people seem to be intimidated by this class because of all the requirements. At least that's what's suspected or theorized, and it's really not. There's not a lot of pressure, and it is amazing training because you get to train at night, and you don't get to train at night hardly ever if you're a regular Joe like me. This was my 3rd time in my life I got to train at night, and it was awesome. So after we go over the in-depth briefing on the class itself, an outline, and the very important safety and medical briefing, we ended up getting lined up in our relays. I think there was only 9 of us for the class, which seems to be about average according to Trek and Derek, though they were the instructors for my class. At the beginning of the class, after the medical briefing and in-depth safety briefing, we actually went out to shoot the long gun rifle qualifier. This consists of 4 different revolutions at 15 yards with a long gun. And all of these different parts of the qualifier have a 6-second par time. This is your target for the qualifier. You have to have 12 out of 14 on the piece of paper. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in order to pass. And you have to shoot 12 out of 14 in this little rectangle on the inside to shoot advanced. Part 1, from the low ready, 5 rounds. Part 2, high ready, 4 rounds. Part 3, from the low ready or high ready, 1 round, speed reload, 2 rounds. Part 4, from the low ready or high ready, 1 round, emergency reload, bolt lock reload, 1 round. Now this brings me to my next tip. Download your rifle magazine before you do the qualifier so you have a little extra give in the top. So when you go to seat that magazine during your reloads, you don't have any issues. Ask me how I know. When I did the qualifier, all of mine were loaded up to 30 rounds. I went to go do my reload, thought I pushed it in there hard, gave it a slap, dropped right back out. I ran out of time. So I actually had to reshoot the qualifier. I ended up shooting 14 out of 14 in the rectangle. And we started working through our different drills using our long gun lights, using our handheld lights in conjunction with our long gun lights, using our pistol transitions from our long gun back and forth. Overall, it was a ton of fun and a lot of information to learn. If you end up having a weapon light go down on your long gun, having to transition to your handheld, searching with your handheld first, and then transitioning to your long gun once you recognize there's a threat as opposed to a bump in the night, a squirrel, a raccoon getting into your garbage as opposed to Mr. Bad Guy. There were a lot of topics covered when it comes to lumen and candela, lumen being the amount of spill or the amount of light that comes out from your light, and candela being the ability of it to pierce through the night and go out to distance. The more candela, the further the light can go. And this is especially important when you end up having other things that may cause issues with that. Fog or smoke, or simply the powder burning off your suppressor, your rifle, can make it difficult for your weapon mounted light to pierce through that. And that's where a handheld light came in really handy. We ended up figuring out during Malfunction Mayhem, we'll talk about that more later, that having light from different angles on the firing line allowed us to see the target we're trying to engage as opposed to dead on. Think of it kind of like turning your high beams on when it's foggy out. It doesn't help anything because it ends up reflecting a whole bunch of light right back at you. But if that light is off to an angle, it ended up being really beneficial. We ended up doing a lot of practice with communication that way and working as a team, the whole relay together, which was a ton of fun. Let's go into the gear that I ended up using for the class, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things we did in the class, along with a very special final stage to test our abilities under a little bit of stress, but putting together everything that we learned in the class. Okay, the gear I ended up using. First off, we'll start core belt, nice and rigid, works for me. I've got 3 or 4 of them. I recommend them. Handgun mag pouches, just Blade Tech. They're super inexpensive, super cheap. They work really good. Adjustable retention, easy to put on, easy to take off. JM Custom Kydex holster, works good. I really, really like this holster in conjunction with the pistol that I use it on. Never had any issues, works great. Pistol I ended up using was my Langdon Tactical NP3 Beretta 92 Streamlight TLR1 HL weapon light. And this also has, I think it's Trijicon. This has Ameriglow night sights. If you watch my low light handgun class, you can see that I don't do very good with a red dot. I just haven't had enough practice with them. So I went back to the iron sights for this pistol that I brought as a backup for the class, and I'm glad I did. Worked out great. A red headlight is perfect. This is the Princeton Viz, works great. It's got a red, blue, green light on it, and also white. But the default, when you hit the button, is red. Notebook, right in the rain pen, just in case. Simple mechanics gloves that I brought for the class, just to help check my forbidden popsicle every now and then, make sure it's nice and tight on my chemo mount. Oh, another tip, don't wear an Apple Watch, because every time you turn your wrist up, it kicks on, just like that. That ends up giving away your position to the bad guy, or having something that automatically lights up, and when it's pitch black out, this thing puts out a ton of light. So even your watch choice is something to consider. This was my handheld flashlight, Streamlight Scorpion HL, with this rubber texture on here, in conjunction with this cheap Streamlight holster that I had. made it very hard to get in and out with any kind of speed. This is a setup that I'm going to be changing, probably going to a Ethereum switchback, and it should be a lot better for me if I can put the flashlight in like so with a different flashlight and pull it out by putting my finger in the Ethereum switchback. Forge Concepts Chem-Light keepers. These worked out great. They're little cable thread through, real strong, better than zip ties, I guess, because you can take them on and off and reuse them. I'll leave a link in the description. They worked out good for me. I liked them. If you're not a subscriber at Your Favorite Libertarian, this is a tip that I got from him. I did this with all of my rifle mags along with my pistol mags. I marked them with this cheap, simple paint markers. Go over there. I'll leave a link to his page. Tell him I sent you. Great tip. Got to give him credit. Here's one of my rifle mags. I marked it up the same way. The rifle. This is American Defense UIC, American Defense M-Lock rail. It's the upper lower. I got this as a builder's kit. I built it out how I want to. I've actually never purchased a AR complete. I always build them. So this has got the forward controls design, MP3, bolt carrier group, bolt, Lantac gas tube, nitride I believe. This is the Criterion core barrel, 16-inch, mid-length gas tube, superlative arms, adjustable gas block. The trigger is a Geisley SSA X trigger with a lightning bow. Radian 45-degree safety selector, which is kind of nice because the lower setup for the 45-degree, if you can see the bolt marking right there. Radian NP3 gas buster charging handle. B5 stock, sling is a Blue Force gear, Magpul MOE K2 Plus grip, JP captured buffer system, EOTech EXPS 3, and the G45 magnifier. You won't need the magnifier in the class. The max you're going to be shooting at is 50 yards. The EOTech EXPS 3 here was really great because that lower dot ended up being perfectly on at 15 yards where a lot of our work was done, especially the qualifier. 50 yard zero on the top dot. We got the primary weapon systems, lightweight buffer tube, and ratcheting castle nut. Moving forward, Mod Light 18650 OKW, along with the Surefire rear cap with push button, and then I've got the pad over here. I just used some of the M-Lock screws that you can get, well, anywhere, just about, to attach it directly on here. Worked out great. Further forward, I've got the flash hider from Dead Air, along with the Sierra 5 suppressor. Takes a lot of the hit out of it and keeps the carbon off the lens of my flashlight. Strike Industries dust cover. I think that's about it. The ambidextrous controls, absolutely love them. If you have a rifle with ambidextrous controls, it's almost like you'll never go back. As far as carrying extra mags, I've got two of these Fab Defense, super cheap. They clip right onto your belt. Mag holders, I've used them for quite a while. They work great. What more is there to say? Piece of equipment that I forgot to bring because I didn't pack the night before, a dump pouch. This is just a Midway USA one. I know this thing works great. I wish I would have had it. Instead, I was just filling my pockets with empty mags as I went through the night. This was a great opportunity because, as I said in my low light handgun class, the opportunity to actually train at night is something that very few of us have the option to do or the readily accessible availability to do. This was the third time in my entire life I was able to train at night, so it was a great opportunity in that aspect alone, and the value of the class is there, again, just for that aspect alone. Once you meet all the requirements, don't be intimidated by all of the requirements and the prerequisites for the class itself, because there is no time limit for any of this. Unlike with the foundation pistol, foundation handgun, they try to press time and do a little bit of stress on top of the training in order to get the most you can out of the training. So as we worked on these different transitions from pistol, handgun, handheld light, rifle light, pistol light, so on and so forth, you can get the idea. You're going to work through every manner, every possibility except for shooting with a long gun with your weapon mounted pistol light, because that's just not very safe and not very practical. But the handgun with a handheld light, the rifle with a handheld light, and other searching techniques, which were covered in the low light handgun class. Very valuable, great practice, absolutely loved it. This is a class, again, I will be attending again and again. The opportunity to train at night, I sound like a broken record. It's a great opportunity. As we worked our way through the evening and into the night, we got to Malfunction Mayhem. Now this was something that everybody loved. It was, I think, everybody's favorite portion of the class. We are clearing malfunctions with no ability to see and engaging a target 50 yards away. Absolutely great. So you would pair up with somebody on the firing line. We only had, I think, nine people, I think, for the low light long gun class. So I paired up with another guy. He was shooting a SCAR, so he didn't have to worry about brass over bolt. Things we did work on were dead trigger, click when we're supposed to get a bang, and brass over bolt. I'm shooting an AR variant, so I had brass over bolt to do. They would manufacture whatever malfunction that they possibly could, a double feed or so on. I forgot to mention that. And then you would go up to the firing line. You'd go by the feel, and they'll teach you how to do the feel, and then clear the problem, and then you have to bang the steel at 50 yards before you can move on to your next malfunction that your partner's going to set up for you. Well, they kind of added a little element of difficulty to this. If you go back and watch my low light handgun class, I'll talk about the importance of choosing your defensive ammo and how much smoke it can produce, because your light can't pierce through the smoke as well as you might have hoped. There was smoke. Lots and lots of smoke and no wind. That made things interesting. And what we did there, we kind of found out by accident. Other people on the far end of the firing line, they can say, you know, they're ready to shoot. They'll light up the target. They can't see through the smoke, but from our perception, from, 20, 30 feet away to the right or to the left, we can see the target now. So we started communicating back and forth. Hey, need light on the target. Bang, hit it. Now, something I'll show in a picture right here, a laser was able to pierce the smoke. You can get that reflection off the steel target, and you can make good hits. One of the instructors, Derek, had his visible laser, green laser, that he put out there for us here and there just to make things a little easier, because again, there was no wind. So we were really working to do that. It was a ton of fun, absolutely great. If you ever have the opportunity, once you go through foundation rifle or foundation handgun, to do malfunction mayhem on the range, I'll tell you, even doing it with friends, it is awesome. Absolutely love it. It's great fun. Do it 10, 20, 30 times. Clearing malfunctions should be second nature to you, just like all of your fundamentals of shooting. So it's very important to practice, and it's a ton of fun. So as we get to the closing of the class, slowly putting things together, everything we learned, kind of combining it, stacking it on top of each other, we got to our final drill, which was interesting. Again, we're putting together everything we learned, transitions from different lights, pistol, rifle, transition between them, rifle, pistol, transition between them, in conjunction with a handheld light. It was a lot of fun. I'm not going to give too much away, but it really makes you work, and you really have to use the biggest tool that you have is between your ears to make sure you're engaging targets properly, using all of the rules of safe firearm handling. That's about all I'm going to say. It's worth attending. You should go to it. If you don't end up liking it, you went to the class, come back, drop a comment, and tell me how I'm a stupid asshole. If you didn't see my low light handgun class, stick around at the end of this video, because I actually get to sit down with the owner of MDFI, Eric Utrecht, goes by Trek, and talk to him a little bit about his low light classes and the benefits behind it. So be sure to stick around for that. Disclaimer, at no point in time was I offered any compensation, free classes, discount classes, or anything of such. This was completely on my own efforts. I wanted to get the word out and tell you all about the benefits of training at night. It's dark half the time. We all need to do it, and most of us don't. Now stop right there. Don't go anywhere. This isn't the part of the video where I ask you to like or subscribe. You can do that on your own if you want. This is the part where I'm going to ask you to take your kids, niece, nephew, grandkids, spouse, neighbor, neighbor's family, neighbor's kids, acquaintance, coworker, somebody that's not very familiar with firearms. Teach them about safe gun handling. Teach them to respect firearms. And who knows, they might end up enjoying firearms. And if they do, that's great, because they're never going to have money for drugs. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.
They went to a training class.
Yes.
It changed their world forever.
First off, can you tell me who you are?
My name is Eric Utrecht. Everybody calls me Trek. I'm the owner of MDFI Training out of Michigan.
What do you like the most about your low light training?
Well, one, a lot of armed citizens don't get to do low light training. And of course, we know that the 50% of the time we're in the dark, and statistically for especially armed citizens, it's probably going to be some sort of nighttime self-defense scenario in the home or around the home. And so it's great to have people that have really good daylight skills to come out and get to try their gear and learn new techniques to, one, utilize their firearm properly in conjunction with either a handheld light or a weapon-mounted light, or a conjunction of both, but also to learn the very, very important part of positive identification of a target, which is what leads so many people that wake up in the morning to be responsibly armed citizens to make a very, very bad decision because they cannot see a target, they shoot at a target they have not positively identified, and next thing you know, it's something that did not deserve to have rounds put into it. So it's arguably one of our most important classes, but unfortunately, just due to the nature of training environments, there's very few places that we can actually do it. So that's great to have this location to be able to shoot until all hours of the night.
Yeah, yeah, and you go over some of that in your briefings, which are just as valuable as the actual hands-on training, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the students take away from the most from these low light classes?
If anything, just like we won't give it away, but the final exercise last night with low light handgun is to give people a moment of pause to realize that you can be the best shooter on a square range, but the moment the dark monster comes in and you have to bring your own lumens, you have to do just an exponential amount more of due diligence to make sure that you are shooting when you are supposed to be shooting. And I think, if anything, even if you don't necessarily become better, which you do if you're working with it, but even if you don't become better shooting in a low light environment, if you leave the class saying, I'm on a new path, I am now a beginner, and 1 8-hour class is not going to give me what I want just to be proficient at shooting in the dark.